777 Cars for Kids.
The Cars for Kids jingle makes a simple request.
Donate your car today.
Shut up! Shut up! What is this charity?
The Cars for Kids jingle makes a simple request.
Donate your car today.
The song has weathered the wrath of comics.
Shut up! Shut up! What is this charity?
But new revelations about the charity are no laughing matter. According to the Minnesota Attorney General, between 2012 and 2014, Cars for Kids raised $3 million in the state through car donations. But less than $12,000 went to Minnesota kids.
And I think it's important when people donate to a charity that they have information in terms of where their money's going.
Where does the money go? 90% of the monies donated go to a sister organization, URA, a New Jersey-based charity that operates Jewish youth summer camps in New York. Daniel Porikoff is president of Charity Watch.
My main concern about Cars for Kids is that people don't know what's really happening with this charity. That's fine if people want to raise money for Orthodox Jews, but they need to be clear and state that's what the purpose is.
Cars for Kids issued a statement. Since we are headquartered in the Northeast, many of our programs and recipients naturally come from this area. We believe Minnesota residents appreciate that their generous donations to Cars for Kids help children both in and out of state. The Minnesota Attorney General had other concerns as well, claiming that the charity lost almost $10 million in real estate transactions.
URA invested the money and then lost the money, and we think that too is something important for people to know.
K-A-R-S Cars.
And the 2015 budget for those ads, $17 million, according to Charity Watch, even more than Cars for Kids gave to URA.
So when one makes a donation to Cars for Kids, they're basically paying for those ads.
Donate your car today.
Hey! Ho, ho! White supremacy's got to go!
Opposing protesters marched Sunday to a statue honoring Confederate General Robert E. Lee.
Take him down!
On one side of the debate, those who want the city's Confederate monuments taken down, saying they are symbols of racism and white supremacy.
The fight that we're waging is against the city fathers who have refused to bring about genuine equality and freedom for the black people here.
On the other side, supporters of monuments who argue they honor Southern heritage and history.
We want it to stay. We understand that most of us can only be here for a day, but it's a symbolic gesture of standing up for what we believe in.
The clash comes as the city plans to remove the statue of Lee and two other Confederate monuments. The first to go was the Liberty Place monument, which was removed in the middle of the night last month. Citing safety concerns, crews wore masks and bulletproof vests. The move sparked protest, including this violent clash near the statue of Jefferson Davis, who served as president of the Confederacy.
Loser! Commie! Pot smoking!
As the city plans to remove the remaining monuments, tensions are high. The New Orleans Police Department confirms multiple threats have been made toward contractors hired by the city to take down the statues. But New Orleans Mayor Mitch Landrieu says he's not backing down.
The removal of these statues sends a clear message, an unequivocal message, to the people of New Orleans and to the people of our nation that New Orleans celebrates our diversity.
Another sign of civility disappearing from civil aviation. A flight attendant pleading for security and the captain. And then that same flight attendant slammed to the floor as the two men continued to fight at the end of their flight to Burbank. In all, Southwest says 3 passengers were involved before being pulled apart. 1 arrest in the Sunday incident the day before this. A terminal turned into a near riot scene. Police in Fort Lauderdale called in when a crowd becomes angry and agitated that Spirit Airlines is canceling flights again.
Very tense, very angry people. Everybody had places to be.
The travel nightmare continued this morning. Lines out the door, dozens more flights canceled. Among the 3 arrested in the melee last night, 24-year-old Janice Wall.
I was upset, and they try to say I started a riot for being upset.
Spirit's week of cancellations, labor trouble, because pilots are refusing overtime flights. A judge late today ruled for the airline, but individual pilots can still refuse extra flights. Both these incidents, reminders of the now unfriendly skies. Watch passengers flee that Southwest jet as that fight continues.
At just 39, Emmanuel Macron is France's youngest leader since Napoleon, and he walloped Marine Le Pen with 66% of the vote. He is also a globalist, a progressive, and pro-European Union. His opponents say he is too soft on terrorism, and that he's the last person France needs to lead it during these dangerous times. In a bout of post-election euphoria, Macron actually promised to unite France, which for a French president is like trying to herd cats. This leftist said Macron's stage show was a success. Extreme finance has won. But Le Pen was magnanimous in defeat.
I called Monsieur Macron to congratulate him on being elected. And I believe in the main interests of the country, and therefore I wished success to him.
Le Pen's National Front party announced it would rebrand and change its name.
Be able to represent a wider scope of sovereignty, leaders and movements around the patriotic idea.
The European establishment and media who helped prop up the European Union breathed a collective sigh of relief that the nationalist Le Pen went down in flames. But this could still be a bad year for the EU. Italian elections could see an anti-Euro movement become the biggest party. Greek finances could damage the value of the euro. Macron has promised to reform the sick French economy, but reform attempts in France are usually met with burning barricades. President Trump tweeted, "Congratulations to Emmanuel Macron on his big win today as the next president of France. I look very much forward to working with him."
The early word on President Donald Trump's executive order on religious freedom is it doesn't go far enough. Many Christians want a full repeal of the Johnson Amendment to prevent the IRS from going after nonprofit organizations or churches.
For the Johnson Amendment to go away, Congress will need to make it happen.
So you believe it is an unconstitutional code?
Absolutely, it's an unconstitutional code.
The 1954 amendment was the brainchild of then Senator Lyndon Johnson. It prohibits registered 501c3 organizations, which include many churches and nonprofits, from participating in political campaigns and endorsing candidates at the risk of losing their tax-exempt status. Critics say the measure's true power takes away free speech, a gag rule of sorts.
The IRS used the Johnson Amendment as a gateway to attack our organization and then collude with other agencies to keep us silent for about 3 years.
Catherine Engelbright runs True the Vote, which encourages people to get involved in elections. She says since it went nonprofit, she was targeted by the IRS and other agencies.
They came after us with the IRS, with FBI, with OSHA, with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, all asking questions about our public and private life while asking for all the tweets I'd tweeted, all the Facebook postings I'd ever posted, all of the written speeches that I was to give, had given since the inception of the organization, and what I was to give for the next 2 years.
A belief shared by Family Research Council.
Pastors and churches should be able to speak about whatever the tenets of their faith, direct them to speak about. And the government shouldn't be paternally trying to protect churches from being divisive. Rather, the government should stay out of the church's affairs.
Supporters, however, argue it protects religious freedom the way it is and keeps transparency in the country's campaign financing system.
Well, one of the other witnesses today talked about the $1 trillion of efforts that these groups, that nonprofits do here. That's a huge amount of money that that passes through this. To begin to see that money directed to political campaigns would be a disaster for campaign finance reform, and particularly given through churches, because the churches, the religious houses of worship, do not have to report who their donors are.
Given presidential backing and a total GOP control of Congress, the Johnson Amendment days could be numbered. If it does get repealed or replaced, it would be historic.
The apps on your phone may be eavesdropping on you. A new article in Wired magazine claims that apps have increasingly incorporated ultrasonic tones to track consumers. They ask permission to access your smartphone microphone, then listen for inaudible beacons.
So take me through the steps. I'm browsing. I love guitars. I'm browsing the Guitar Center website.
Right.
Take me through, and we're not saying that they are the ones that engage in this practice, but I'm just using this as an example.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing that could happen is their website could emit one of these ultrasonic frequencies. And if your microphone on a device like a phone or your computer is set up to be listening and has the permission to be listening to that, it'll hear it come from the web page, and then it'll report in to the app that's on your phone that asks for the permission, saying, oh, this person loaded this web page, and the way they know it's you is because it's your phone.
So how does a consumer protect themselves against something like this?
I think the easiest way is that on iOS and Android, there are ways to check what permissions you've granted apps. So you can go in and see what has access to the microphone and think about whether or not that app really needs it. There's been a lot of research about this because I think the potential privacy concerns are pretty obvious. This technology can also be used in a totally legitimate way, but particularly since the microphone gets this full access to be listening all the time, it's listening for the beacons, but in the process it's just listening for everything. So researchers have really been pushing and saying, isn't there a way that we could have the microphone only listen for the high-pitched frequencies? Isn't there a way that we can tell consumers that it's going to be listening just for these things? You know, what type of granularity can we add in so that there's more control and it's not just collecting everything that you're hearing all the time? Because it's obvious why that would be a problem and scary. You can really see how adversaries could manipulate this in all sorts of ways. And one way is that even if you're doing anonymized browsing, like in the Tor network, if there's one of these beacons built into a website and it emits its tone, you don't even hear it. You just loaded a page within Tor and you think your browsing is anonymized. But if your microphone in your computer and your phone or in some other device is also compromised, like if you're being really targeted, that'll tell someone what page you loaded in Tor, because even though your browsing is anonymized there, that other device, your phone or your computer's microphone, still heard that beacon that then reported back and said, this person loaded this page.
A clear relationship between sugar and cancer leads scientists to two conclusions. Sugar use contributes to cancer, and going without it can slow growth of the disease.
100 years ago, most folks consumed only 4 pounds of sugar a year. That's this much. Now, however, the average person takes in 40 times this amount, 160 pounds of sugar a year. That's this much.
Food manufacturers add enormous amounts of sugar, usually in the form of high fructose corn syrup, to products we consume all day, every day. Coffee drinks and cereal, soda and snacks, even foods you wouldn't expect like spaghetti sauce and peanut butter. This tiny container of yogurt contains more sugar than a candy bar.
Now, scientists tell us sugar directly influences cancer cells. The amount we consume can either feed those cells or starve them.
In a landmark study, researchers at UT-MD Anderson Cancer Center fed mice high fructose corn syrup in percentages equal to what many humans consume. Those mice developed higher rates of lung and breast cancer compared to mice fed less sugar. The study also tells us something about people who already have cancer. One researcher said a lot of patients are told it doesn't matter what you eat after you are diagnosed with cancer. This preliminary animal research suggests that it does matter.
And it just absolutely amazes me that medical science is just now finding this out.
Fred Hatfield knows firsthand sugar intake matters after a cancer diagnosis. Back in 2012, his diagnosis was basically a death sentence.
The doctors gave me 3 months to live because of widespread metastatic cancer in my skeletal structure. 3 months. 3 different doctors told me that same thing.
It's a horrible, horrible feeling to have someone tell you that the person that you love only has 3 months to live and you're not going to be with him anymore.
Then Fred heard about a low-sugar diet called the ketogenic diet, believed to slow cancer in some people. With nothing to lose, he gave it a try, and to his astonishment, it worked.
And the cancer was gone completely.
Fred's recovery didn't surprise Dr. Dominic D'Agostino. His team at the University of South Florida discovered mice with highly aggressive metastatic cancer continued living when fed a ketogenic diet.
We have dramatically increased survival with metabolic therapy. So we think it's important to get this information out.
And it's not just lab animals. Dr. D'Agostino has seen similar results in humans.
I've been in correspondence with a number of people, probably at least a dozen people, and over the last 1.5 to 2 years, and all of them are still alive, so despite the odds. And so this is very encouraging.
The ketogenic diet means no sugar and no starchy carbohydrates like bread and pasta that convert to sugar. D'Agostino says cancer cells love sugar and starch because cancer thrives on the glucose from those foods. Remove the glucose and starve the cancer cells. Glucose also fuels our healthy cells, but if it's not there, those cells can switch to an alternate fuel source called ketone bodies. Cancer cells only run on glucose.
Your normal cells have the metabolic flexibility to adapt from using glucose to using ketone bodies. But cancer cells lack this metabolic flexibility, so we can exploit that.
Since processed food contains so much sugar and starch, people following the ketogenic diet tend to cook whole foods from scratch.
You can go online and there's just cookbooks and, it's clean eating, just very clean eating. None of the sugars, the salts, the trash food.
So when it comes to cancer, sugar is considered public enemy number 1. Avoiding it could lead to prevention or slow it down in people fighting the disease.
An increasing number of parents in China are walking away from children born with physical disabilities, but we have a miracle story to report.
For 7 years, Fu Twin-Zhi and his wife Xiao Li tried to conceive a child. Finally, in 2011, they decided to adopt an abandoned baby. The Christian couple was thrilled when they found the perfect baby at a local orphanage.
As soon as we got the phone call, we were so happy. My wife and I couldn't wait to see this baby. We've been waiting for this day forever.
In the midst of their happiness, they received disappointing news. The baby that they thought had been perfectly and wonderfully made was born with a small tumor in his mouth and was not able to eat and drink.
We didn't know what to do. We wanted to keep the baby. Meanwhile, the cost for the surgery was so expensive. We were heartbroken. We lost hope and direction.
These church members went through a tough time. They didn't ask for anything except for prayers and guidance. So I invited all Christians to pray for a miracle.
Half a world away, Americans Audrey and Rob Post heard about the Chinese family's struggle. A church member shared the story and then asked them to pray. They did so and remained faithful, believing that God would answer their prayers.
My husband and I always know the Lord can do miracles. Jesus answered prayers many times in our life, and we believe that nothing is too difficult for the Lord.
Other Christians also prayed for the Chinese couple and their baby. As time went by, although nothing changed, they still believed that God could work a miracle.
God's favor will show up when we are down to nothing. Just because they didn't see a way, it certainly didn't mean God was not working behind the scenes. I told the couple to remain faithful and patient.
Amazingly, one day, Zhi and Xiao Li saw the baby just spit something out of his mouth. They gave it a closer look and discovered it was the tumor that had been lodged in his mouth. The couple was brought to tears.
It's a miracle. Only Jesus could do such an unthinkable miracle. When all Christians come and pray together, we can move mountains.
Not only did God give an abandoned child a new home, but he also performed a life-changing miracle for an entire Chinese family.